Having sold more than 200 million albums worldwide, the Guinness World Records has ranked her the most successful female recording artist of all time. But how does Madonna Louise Veronica Ciccone rate her career?
No big regrets. I think if, I get a bit freaked out by some of my hairstyles and a few outfits, some hideous photographs, I don't know, things like that. Maybe a few guys I dated, but nothing too big, right? Well, the same regrets we all have.
Except that most of us haven't had to endure the humiliation of seeing our fashion faux pas and relationship foibles splashed across the world's front pages for the best part of 30 years. But then again, the lack of privacy has had its compensations. Like, for instance,
having a #1 record in 28 countries? Yeah.
Madonna's incredible story began on August the 16th in 1958 in Bay City, Michigan. Born at 7 a.m. to a French-Canadian mother and an Italian-American father, she aced all her classes at school and immediately fell in love with ballet. At the age of 19, she packed her bags and headed to New York to look for work as a dancer. It was the first time she'd ever been on a plane.
She came here and she came to New York City in 1978 and, with $37 in her pocket and, scraped and scratched and, and persevered.
After coming to the conclusion that dancing was a dead-end career, she concentrated on singing and songwriting. She signed a deal in 1982 with Sire Records, and her debut album spawned 3 hit singles. Her follow-up, Like a Virgin, shot to #1 and seemed to pave the way for an acting career, thanks to her role in the comedy Desperately Seeking Susan.
Back in the beginning of the 80s, when she was very first starting, she was favoured for her tutus, little lace gloves, Wayfarer glasses.
The lace ribbons, lycra leggings and big hair signified merely the first of many trends that Madonna would kick off over the following decades. Next came the bleached blonde and muscly Marilyn Monroe look of True Blue, which featured the hits Papa Don't Preach, Open Your Heart and La Isla Bonita. Then in 1990, she asked avant-garde French designer Jean-Paul Gaultier to create her costumes for her Blonde Ambition World Tour.
Probably her most iconic clothing moment is the conical bra, the flesh tone with the black wide leg pants.
The rash of publicity whipped up by her daring new image helped promote her first compilation album, The Immaculate Collection, as did the controversy caused by the overtly sexual video to her single Justify My Love. By now, Madonna had become the poster girl for the old adage, there's no such thing as bad publicity. 15 years later, in the wake of a furore that saw Russian priests attempting to cancel her Confessions tour, she admitted that having herself strapped to a mirror-encrusted crucifix as part of her show was a pure publicity stunt designed to land her in the news. Needless to say, she sold out the Russian leg of a tour that would become the highest-grossing tour of all time by a female artist. But back in 1998, on the eve of the release of her Ray of Light album, which reflected her newfound spiritual interest in the Jewish teachings of Kabbalah, it was all about the music. The trance-infused offering earned great reviews, with some critics calling it the music masterpiece of the decade. No doubt her 2-year stint as a first-time mother to little Lord Des had also contributed to her creative development, which was about to take yet another dramatic turn. 2 years later, celebrities were queuing up to witness the goddess of pop's next onstage incarnation as a discoed-up rhinestone cowboy at the Brixton Academy.
Just to see the Queen herself, it's an honour, it's a privilege, and I can't wait.
What do you think about Madonna after 8 years not playing Brixton?
She'll rock it, she'll kick it, she's the bomb, she's going to do it.
How do we get the tickets?
On the radio, right?
On
the radio.
Cunning means.
Kylie. You like my shirt? T-shirt?
Did you make it yourself?
Yeah.
It was thanks to these guys. They're lovely outfits.
The Brixton gig was merely a warm-up for her Drowned World tour to promote Ray of Light and her follow-up album, Music. Alongside a country and western-inspired segment, the show also took influences from punk, urban and Latin culture, as well as Japan.
I'm constantly looking for new sort of cultures and ideas to inform what I do, and I just have a serious fascination with the world of geisha right now, and it's got nothing to do with my daughter.
Now in her 40s, when most pop acts are thinking about retiring, Madonna was just getting started. After her 2003 album, American Life, failed to match the success of her first 8 albums, she bounced back like a rubber ball with her chart-topping disco triumph, Confessions on a Dance Floor. Despite breaking her arm and several ribs in a horse-riding accident, she was back out on stage and in the headlines with another sellout tour.
She's one hot mama. No, she's cool. I've liked her since I was small. I think she's really interesting. I've always been interested in her. Like, had the biggest crush on her from being really small.
At more than twice the age of some of her younger peers, the Queen of Pop was still very much on top.
A lot of women at the age of, she was about 47 then, would so be up there in their leotards if they got the legs that she'd got. And it wasn't that it was vulgar in any way. I just think people were shocked to see a 47-year-old woman that had such an amazing figure. But I think, you go girl, you're amazing.
Proving that there was still plenty of life in the old girl yet, she parted company with Warner Brothers in 2007 and signed a new 10-year deal worth $120 million with Live Nation, which included a 3-album commitment as well as a roster of live shows. In an interview in New York in 2008, she explained the motivation behind the move.
Number one, coming up with new, interesting, innovative ways of releasing music, finding new ways to get music to people. That's one thing. 2 is being an equal partner in my records, you know, which I've never been before. I've always been signed to a label and I get a percentage of, you know, what I earn, but now it's like 50-50, which is great. And 3 is like all the great shows I plan on doing.
The first job on hand, however, was the task of talking up her 11th studio album, Hard Candy, which featured the talents of Justin Timberlake and Uber producer Timbaland.
Well, I had high levels of expectation from them. I knew they would bring something interesting to the table, but I also knew that I had to take what they brought and make it my own. I didn't want to just be like a singer on one of their records. I thought of it as a true and equal collaboration.
That collaboration spawned the album's lead single, 4 Minutes. Her duet with JT went to #1 in the UK and reached #3 on the Billboard Hot 100, handing Madonna her 37th US Top 10 hit, breaking Elvis Presley's long-held record. She followed Hard Candy up with her Sticky Sweet tour and has since released her 3rd album of greatest hits. Clearly, she's a long way off thinking about retirement yet.
I don't see it coming anytime soon, but you know, you never know. If I stop loving what I do, that's when I stop doing it.
Then there is no reason why her career can't go into her 60s. I mean, when you think of Madonna when she emerged in the early 80s, you know, with Holiday, nobody would have believed that in 25 years' time she would still be having #1 hits. So it's no less remarkable that in 10 years' time she'll be doing the same thing.
With years to run on her new Live Nation contract, she looks set to keep touring and recording for years to come. But even if Madonna's musical career was suddenly to go pop, she'd have no shortage of other skills to fall back on. Almost everything this superwoman touches turns to gold. Back in 1992, she used her pot-stirring talents to whip up a media frenzy ahead of the release of her unambiguously titled book, Sex. The metal-covered book, sealed in plastic, contained full frontal nude shots of the author, as well as graphic sexual fantasies. Demand for the book ran so hot that one London bookstore decided to open up at midnight on the official release date to get ahead of the competition, employing a Madonna lookalike to drum up trade. Within days, Sex had sold more than 1.5 million copies, neatly boosting publicity for the release of her 5th studio album, the equally provocatively titled Erotica.
When I published the book Sex, I was at a point in my life where I was interested in pushing boundaries and questioning society and dealing with taboo subjects, and I was into showing off, and I was interested in myself, essentially.
In contrast to her rather racy start in the book business, Madonna's more recent literary endeavours have been somewhat more family-friendly.
Obviously, I'm writing children's books now, and I'm interested in children, and I look back at the journey that I've made from then until now, and I'm actually quite proud of my journey, because the sex book was about me and saying, hey, look at me, and the children's books were about hopefully imparting some wisdom to people, to children.
The inspiration behind The English Roses, a latter-day Cinderella tale, was her growing involvement with the Kabbalah faith. It ended up being translated into 30 languages and sold in 100 different countries. Within hours of release, it shot up to number 7 on Amazon.com's bestseller list, eventually becoming a New York Times bestseller. 4 more children's books followed, including The Adventures of Abdi, which tells the tale of a little boy who's charged with the task of delivering the most precious necklace in the world to the Queen. The story conveys an age-old message about the importance of optimism, as Abdi encounters challenges and hardship, yet never gives up hope.
Hey guys. How are you? Fine.
Where are you from? What school are you from?
St. Nicholas.
St. Nicholas?
St. Winifred's.
St. Winifred's?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, you're really good at answering all at the same time.
Madonna's other extracurricular activities have included founding her own entertainment company in a joint venture with Time Warner, which lasted until 2004. Maverick consisted of a record company, as well as publishing, screen and merchandising divisions. Over the years, its music arm posted some great triumphs, signing up top-selling artists like Alanis Morissette, The Prodigy and The Deftones, and releasing the soundtracks to hit films like The Wedding Singer, Jackie Brown and The Matrix. Since handing back the reins of Maverick to Time Warner, she's concentrated more on her film career. First cab off the rank was a follow-up to her 1991 documentary Truth or Dare. 2005's I'm Gonna Tell You a Secret was designed to shine a light into the evolution of her reinvention tour. Directing honours went to Jason Ackerlund, and at the premiere in New York, he gave his overview of the film.
The film is about everything that she thinks is important in life right now, and it's a lot of spirituality, and it's a lot about creativity, and it's a lot about her thoughts and, you know, where she is today as a grown woman.
According to the co-producer of her Confessions on a Dance Floor album, I'm Gonna Tell You a Secret delivered on its promise.
I think, you know, this documentary is a big insight into so many areas of Madonna's life that I think people probably haven't seen yet, and even people that have followed her a long time don't really know what she's like with her family and what she's like with her band and what she's like with all those kind of things. I think she can be quite misunderstood for a lot of reasons.
While she's enjoyed runaway success in almost every aspect of her creative and commercial life, it's fair to say that Madonna's assault on the big screen has been somewhat less effective. Although her breakthrough role in Desperately Seeking Susan was met with positive reviews, her subsequent performances in films like Who's That Girl?, Shanghai Surprise and Body of Evidence did more to impress the selection panel of the Golden Raspberry Awards than the Oscars. But just when it looked like her thespian days were over, the Queen of Reinvention rebounded with a Golden Globe-winning performance in the big screen adaptation of the musical Evita. Still, even that triumph brought its controversies, with protesters in Argentina complaining that she had cheapened the image of real-life Evita and former First Lady Eva Perón. Braving the protests, Madonna and her co-star Jonathan Pryce met the press in Buenos Aires.
I think the most amazing thing about her life story is that she came from nothing and rose to such power and had such a great influence on her country. And when I found out a little bit about her, I wanted to know more. And the more I knew, the more I wanted to know. Well, I can't say I didn't feel hurt by them, but truthfully, I think that the negative remarks that people have made are based on things that people don't know and don't understand. And I urge you all to form your opinions after you see the movie.
Since then, however, Madonna's trips to the multiplex have failed to win her any accolades. And after landing a Razzie Award for Worst Actress in 2003's Swept Away, she decided it was time for a change of tack.
I think the next time I make a movie, I'm going to be directing it. That's my goal.
True to her word, she took on the job of bringing her first feature film, Filth and Wisdom, to the big screen. Starring Eugene Hutz, the comedy musical Romance told the story of a wannabe rock star who finances his dream by moonlighting as a cross-dressing dominatrix.
The biggest challenge, gosh, what was the biggest challenge? Knowing when you've got it, when you've got that take on film and you can move on. Having the confidence to say, right, we got it. We don't need to do another take.
One challenge she didn't have to face this time was criticism of her acting.
I was so happy to be on the other side of the camera and not ever have to worry about hair or makeup or wardrobe. I found it tremendously liberating.
Although reviews of the film were mixed, most critics agreed that Madonna had done herself proud as a first-time director. Meanwhile, she'd also been hard at work on another film project, a documentary about the troubles facing the people of Malawi.
I did find hope there because in spite of all of the hardships that people have to endure there, as I say in the film, you know, I saw so much happiness there. I saw that people with so little had so much appreciation for life and so much joy.
As writer, producer and narrator of I Am Because We Are, she was determined to bring better understanding to the plight of a country that had been very close to her heart since the controversial adoption of her son David.
I think it helps explain a lot of the story and the mystery to people, and I think people will have a better perspective, but I think it's always good to know the whole story before you jump to conclusions, and hopefully that will, I mean, the movie's not just about the adoption, but I hope it will fill in some blanks for people.
Little David's adoption caused a media furore due to objections in Malawi that Madonna and her then-husband Guy Ritchie had not met the legal requirements of staying in the country for a year. The case dominated international headlines for weeks, confirming the world's fascination with the private life of a material girl who has given the gossip columnists plenty of grist for the mill over the years. Back in the 1980s, it was her tumultuous marriage to actor Sean Penn that kept the paparazzi busy. After divorcing him, she had a 3-year relationship with famous ladies man Warren Beatty and reported flings with the likes of Lenny Kravitz, Vanilla Ice, porn star Tony Ward and Ingrid Casares. Ironically, however, it was her romance with unknown personal trainer and actor Carlos Leon that produced her first child, Lourdes, in 1996. But by the time little Lourdes could walk, her mum had found what would turn out to be more lasting love in the arms of Guy Ritchie. the new wunderkind of British independent cinema, who just struck gold with his directing debut, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. 2 years later, after providing Lourdes with baby brother Rocco, they were married in a Scottish castle, and Madonna made a permanent move to the UK. Over the next few years, the Ciccone-Riccies played happy families, bonding over their mutual devotion to the Kabbalah faith and supporting each other through the long and complicated process of bringing 13-month David into the fold.
It's nice. It's lovely. It's so great to hold him, and you know, he's just starting to walk, and just to see that, you know, the whole world being new again, and to see the world through his eyes is wonderful, and to see my children, my older children, with him.
When they could get a babysitter, the happy couple would show up at each other's launches and premieres.
It must be quite a busy time in the Ritchie household, with you putting the finishing touches to the film. We know the album as well is coming up very soon, and also with the accident and everything.
We'd love to spend more time with each other.
I was going to say.
It is an issue, it is an issue, yes.
But hopefully that'll be sorted soon. You get back together and sort it all out.
Yeah, Christmas holidays we're looking forward to.
That's going to be time to get away. Are you going to be going anywhere nice?
Yeah, but we're not going to tell you where.
But when Madonna started encroaching on Guy's filmmaking territory, the media began to sense a little strain creeping into the relationship.
I could do without the competition.
What's the household going to be like if you've got two famous directors in there?
I don't know. I mean, you know, more or less she ends up sort of directing things anyway, so I don't think it'll be anything new.
And what would the Ritchie household be like with two famous directors?
The same as it is right now. Two people with very big egos having discussions about things.
By 2008, speculation of a rift in the Ritchie household was reaching fever pitch, thanks to rumours that Madonna had been playing away from home with US baseball star Alex Rodriguez. Repeated denials of trouble at the ranch were finally followed by an admission that it was all over for Madonna and Guy.
Well, over the last 3 months, I think they've tried their best to sort of repair damage in the relationship, but a sort of series of rows and some more details we'll reveal in the paper tomorrow have come to the fore, and it's looking like that they just couldn't speak to her anymore. They just couldn't have conversations without developing into an argument, and things have just come to a point where they've had to call it a day.
Not that she was about to let the small matter of divorce slow her down. Early in 2009, Madonna was on her way back to Malawi to adopt 3-year-old Chifundo Mercy James. Also on the agenda were the release of her greatest hits compilation Celebration and the start of her Sticky Sweet tour, as well as preparations to direct her second film, prompting reporters to ask, just how does she do it?
How do I manage? I don't know. I work hard and I just keep moving forward no matter what happens.
And what would you say to people who thought that you weren't going to, you know, make that? What would you say to them?
I would say, so there.
Her the most successful female recording artist of all time. But how does Madonna Louise Veronica Ciccone rate her career?
No big regrets. I think if, you know, I get a bit freaked out by some of my hairstyles and a few outfits, some hideous photographs, I don't know, things like that. Maybe a few guys I dated, but nothing too big, right? Well, the same regrets we all have.
Except that most of us haven't had to endure the humiliation of seeing our fashion faux pas and relationship foibles splashed across the world's front pages for the best part of 30 years. But then again, the lack of privacy Having sold more than 200 million albums worldwide, the Guinness World Records has ranked has had its compensations. Like, for instance,
having a #1 record in 28 countries. Yeah.
Madonna's incredible story began on August the 16th in 1958 in Bay City, Michigan. Born at 7 a.m. to a French-Canadian mother and an Italian-American father, she aced all her classes at school and immediately fell in love with ballet. At the age of 19, she packed her bags and headed to New York to look for work as a dancer. It was the first time she'd ever been on a plane.
She came here and she came to New York City in 1960.
Little lace gloves, Wayfarer glasses.
The lace ribbons, lycra leggings and big hair signified merely the first of many trends that Madonna would kick off over the following decades. Next came the bleached blonde and muscly Marilyn Monroe look of True Blue, which featured the hits Papa Don't Preach, Open Your Heart and La Isla Bonita. Then in 1990, she asked avant-garde French designer Jean-Paul Gaultier to create her costumes for her Blonde Ambition World Tour.
Probably her most iconic clothing moment is the conical bra. The
78 and, you know, with $37 in her pocket and, you know, scraped and scratched and, you know, was and persevered.
After coming to the conclusion that dancing was a dead-end career, she concentrated on singing and songwriting. She signed a deal in 1982 with Sire Records, and her debut album spawned 3 hit singles. Her follow-up, Like a Virgin, shot to #1 and seemed to pave the way for an acting career, thanks to her role in the comedy Desperately Seeking Susan.
Back in the beginning of the 80s, when she was very first starting, you know, she was favoured for her 2